The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Peter approached Jesus and asked him, "Lord, if my brother sins against me, how often must I forgive him? As many as 7 times?" Jesus answered, "I say to you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7 times. That is why the kingdom of heaven may be likened to a king who decided to settle accounts with his servants. When he began the accounting, a debtor was brought before him who owed him a huge amount. Since he had no way of paying it back, his master ordered him to be sold, along with his wife, his children, and all his property, in payment of the debt. At that the servant fell down, did him homage, and said, 'Be patient with me, and I will pay you back in full.' Moved with compassion, the master of that servant let him go and forgave him the loan. When that servant had left, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him a much smaller amount. He seized him and started to choke him, demanding, 'Pay back what you owe.' Falling to his knees, his fellow servant begged him, 'Be patient with me, and I will pay you back.' But he refused. Instead, he had him put in prison until he paid back the debt. Now when his fellow servants saw what had happened, they were deeply disturbed and went to their master and reported the whole affair. His master summoned him and said to him, 'You wicked servant, I forgave you your entire debt because you begged me to. Should you not have had pity on your fellow servant as I had pity on you?' Then in anger his master handed him over to the torturers, till he should pay back the whole debt. So will my heavenly Father do to you, unless each of you forgives your brother from your heart." The Gospel of the Lord. Today we have the first reading of the 3 men in the fiery furnace, this famous story from the book of Daniel. It's one of my favorite stories from the Bible growing up, and I want to make some comments about this story. So what we heard from today was as the 3 men were in the fire, Azariah stood up and he prayed aloud to God. Now, there's some significant parts of this passage that maybe we don't always know about the story. First of all, why were the 3 men thrown into the furnace into the first place? You don't need to say it out loud, but you might ask yourself that question. Why were they thrown into the furnace? They were thrown into the furnace because King Nebuchadnezzar, who is the king of that region at this time, he had erected a golden idol. And that idol was 60 cubits tall and 6 feet wide. Right? And he demanded that everybody in the region would bow down and pay homage to that statue. Right? Now, that should remind you of some other things. For example, it might remind you of when we talked about the book of Esther a few weeks ago, and we talked about the wicked man Haman, who demanded homage from Malachi and from Esther, and they refused to give homage. We should also notice that there's something significant about how tall the idol was. It was 60 cubits tall, 6 feet wide. In the Bible, when you see numbers that emphasize the number 6, normally that emphasizes something sinister going on. For example, Goliath was 6 cubits tall in a span. King Solomon, when he started to have his sinful downfall as the king, it says he taxed the people and he received 666 talents of gold in exchange for his tyrannical taxes. Likewise, in the story from the book of Daniel, this idol is 60 cubits tall, 6 feet wide. There's something evil and sinister that was taking place here. Also, something that's significant about this passage is that, in a certain sense, it mysteriously foreshadowed what Christ would eventually do one day in his salvation and the Paschal mystery. So church fathers, when they read this passage about the 3 men in the fiery furnace, they noticed that when the 3 men were thrown into the fiery furnace, there was a 4th person who appeared among them. Some translations say that it was the angel of the Lord. Some translations say it was one like the Son of Man, right? Which is how Jesus referred to himself in his ministry. So the church fathers saw this as a foreshadowing of what Christ eventually did when he died on the cross, but not just died on the cross. What did he do after he died? He descended into hell so that he could do battle with the forces of evil, and he could liberate the souls from the underworld and bring them up to resurrection, right? And so in this passage, when we see this one like a son of man appearing with the three men, it was like a foreshadowing of what Jesus would one day descend into the depths amongst the realm of the dead and bring them up to heaven and the resurrection. A lot of really cool things about this passage for us to think about today.